Imagine a dinner table. The family sits together, plates full, voices overlapping in conversation. But if you look closely, you'll notice something subtle. Something that doesn't announce itself with words but lives in the spaces between them. The way one child's accomplishment is met with bright eyes and proud smiles, while another's is acknowledged with a distracted nod. The way one name is spoken with warmth, while another is said with duty. The way love, that most essential human need, seems to flow unevenly, like water tilting toward one side of a scale. This is favoritism. And though it may seem small in the moment, though parents may not even realize they're doing it, the impact echoes through a lifetime. Because children don't just notice these differences. They absorb them, they internalize them, and slowly, quietly, they begin to build their sense of worth around them. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something. Share in the comments where you're watching from, and tell me, have you witnessed favoritism in your own family or in families around you? How did it shape the people involved? Now put your device on full screen and stay with me until the end, because what we're about to explore goes far beyond childhood. It reaches into adulthood, into identity, into the very fabric of how we see ourselves and each other. The psychology of parental favoritism is not a story of villains and victims. It's a story of invisible hierarchies, of unintentional wounds, and of love that was never divided equally, even when it should have been. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Most parents, if asked directly, would deny having a favorite child. They would say they love all their children equally. And perhaps they do love them. But love and favoritism are not opposites. Favoritism isn't always about loving one child more. It's about showing that love differently, more openly, more consistently, more warmly. And children, with their sharp instincts and watchful eyes, can sense this difference even when no one speaks it aloud. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades, and what they've found is both heartbreaking and revealing. Favoritism often emerges not from malice, but from compatibility. A parent may favor the child who reminds them of themselves, or the one whose temperament is easier to manage, or the one whose achievements reflect well on the family. Sometimes it's the firstborn, symbol of new beginnings. Sometimes it's the youngest, the baby who will always be small in their eyes. And sometimes, tragically, it's based on gender, appearance, or traits the parent unconsciously values more. But here's what matters most. Regardless of why it happens, the effect is the same. It fractures the foundation of what should be a child's safest place, their home. Now, let's talk about the unfavored child first, because this is where the wound cuts deepest. Imagine growing up constantly wondering, why not me? You watch your sibling receive praise for grades you also earned. You see them hugged longer, listened to more carefully, forgiven more easily, and you begin to ask yourself the question that will haunt you for years. What is wrong with me? The unfavored child doesn't just feel less loved, they feel less worthy of love. And this belief, formed in the tender years of childhood, becomes the lens through which they see the entire world. They may grow up striving endlessly for approval, working harder than everyone else just to feel seen. Or they may give up entirely, retreating into themselves, convinced that no matter what they do, it will never be enough. This is where the psychology becomes truly painful. Because the unfavored child often internalizes the favoritism as a reflection of their own value rather than their parent's limitation. They don't think, my parent is flawed. They think, I am flawed. And that belief can shape decades of their life, influencing their relationships, their career choices, their self-esteem, even their capacity to trust that they are deserving of good things. But let's pause here because there's something we often overlook. The favored child suffers too, just in a different way. You might think being the favorite is a blessing, and in some ways it is. The favored child receives more attention, more affection, more validation. But with that comes pressure. The pressure to maintain the position, the pressure to live up to the pedestal they've been placed on, the pressure never to disappoint, because if they do, they might lose the very love they've come to depend on. And there's something else. The favored child often grows up with a distorted sense of reality. They may struggle to handle criticism because they were shielded from it at home. They may expect the world to treat them the way their parents did, with special consideration and grace. And when the world doesn't, when it treats them as ordinary, they may feel confused, even betrayed. Worse still, they carry guilt. Deep down, many favored children know they were treated better. They saw the hurt in their siblings' eyes, and even if they never spoke about it, even if they benefited from it, they carry the weight of that imbalance. Some grow resentful of the role they were forced into. Others become defensive, justifying the favoritism to protect their sense of self. And here lies the tragedy. Both children lose. One loses their sense of worth, the other loses their sense of reality. And between them, a wall begins to build. Let's talk about sibling relationships, because this is where favoritism does some of its most lasting damage. Siblings should be natural allies. They share a history, a home, a set of experiences no one else can fully understand. But when favoritism enters the picture, it poisons that bond. The unfavored child may grow to resent their sibling, not because of anything the sibling did, but simply because they represent what was denied. Every success the favored child enjoys becomes a reminder of what the unfavored child lacks. And over time, that resentment can harden into distance, even hatred. Meanwhile, the favored child may feel confused by this resentment. They didn't ask to be favored, they didn't create the dynamic, and yet they're blamed for it. This creates a painful cycle where neither sibling can fully connect, because the foundation of their relationship was built on inequality. And here's the philosophical question we must ask. Can siblings truly love each other when they were never given an equal place at the table? Can they build trust when one was always chosen and the other was always overlooked? The answer is yes, but it requires immense work. It requires both siblings to recognize the dynamic, to name it, to grieve what was lost. And most importantly, it requires them to see each other not as the favored or unfavored, but as two people who were both shaped and hurt by the same broken system. Now let's go deeper into the long-term effects. Because favoritism doesn't end when childhood does. It follows people into adulthood, shaping how they love, how they work, how they see themselves. The unfavored child may become an overachiever, constantly chasing validation, never quite believing they've done enough. Or they may become self-sabotaging, unconsciously fulfilling the belief that they don't deserve success. In relationships, they may struggle with trust, always waiting for the moment when they'll be discarded for someone better. The favored child, on the other hand, may struggle with entitlement or fragility. They may expect special treatment and feel wounded when it doesn't come. Or they may live in fear of failure, terrified that one mistake will shatter the image they've worked so hard to maintain. And both may struggle with their relationship to their parents. The unfavored child may distance themselves, unable to forgive the years of inequality. The favored child may remain enmeshed, dependent on their parents' approval in ways that stunt their growth. But here's the most painful part. Many parents never realize the damage they've done. They see their children drift apart, see one struggle and the other succeed, and they don't connect it back to the years of unequal treatment. They may even feel hurt, wondering why their family isn't closer, not understanding that they were the ones who planted the seeds of division. So what can be done? Is there healing possible? The answer is yes, but it begins with acknowledgement. Parents must be willing to look honestly at their behavior, to admit where they fell short, to recognize the pain they caused. This is not easy. It requires humility. It requires the courage to sit with uncomfortable truths. And for the children, now adults, healing requires separating their worth from their parents' treatment. It means recognizing that favoritism was never about them. It was about their parents' limitations, their unresolved issues, their inability to love evenly. This doesn't erase the pain, but it shifts the narrative. Instead of "I wasn't good enough," it becomes "I was always enough. They just couldn't see it." And for siblings, healing means having the hard conversations. It means naming the favoritism, sharing how it hurt, and choosing to build a new relationship, one not based on competition, but on mutual understanding. Let me leave you with this image. Imagine two trees planted side by side. One receives sunlight, water, care. The other is left in shadow, given just enough to survive, but never enough to thrive. Over time, one grows tall and strong. The other remains small, its branches twisted from reaching toward light that never fully came. But here's the truth. Even the tree left in shadow has roots. Even the tree that struggled has strength. And with time, with care, with the right conditions, it can still grow. It may not look like the other tree, but it can still bloom. Favoritism creates wounds that last decades. But those wounds do not have to define a lifetime. Because the unfavored child can learn their worth was never dependent on their parents' attention. And the favored child can learn that love should never come with conditions. And perhaps in the end, both can learn this, that the truest form of strength is not being chosen, but choosing yourself. Choosing to heal. Choosing to see your own value, regardless of who did or didn't see it first. Because you were always worthy, always enough. And no amount of favoritism, no matter how deep, can ever change that truth.